Hey there, welcome to the Second Act Success podcast. Recently, we did an episode on mini retirements, taking a break mid-career or mid-career to business transition, and it really got a lot of responses. One person who reached out to me is Patricia Sasser. Patricia is an independent school leader. She decided to take a mini retirement or mid-career sabbatical just last year. She's still in the midst of it, and she is joining me today for a really in-depth conversation to look at why she chose to take a break, how it has affected her, and what her plans are next. Let's get to it. Patricia Sasser, welcome to Second Act Success.
Thank you, Shannon. It's really great to be here.
It's so nice to meet you. We connected recently on LinkedIn. And what was nice is that I not too long ago did a episode on mini retirements and the new trend that is taking over for a lot of us in midlife. You reached out saying, "Hey, I'm actually in the midst of that now." And I said, "Why don't you come on the show and we'll really dive into your experience." So, thank you for being open to chat with me about this.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share. Obviously, I'm still in the midst of it, so I'm still processing it and everything.
Yeah.
But your episode spoke to me, and I'd never heard it called a mini retirement before, which you talked about in the episode of
Yeah.
sabbaticals, etc.
Yes.
But yeah, here I am.
Let's start first with what do you do for a living? And then we'll talk about what it was like when you decided, okay, I think I need to take a little pause here.
When I'm not pausing, I am a school leader. I work in the independent school space. And so most recently, I was the assistant head of school for academics of a boarding and day school locally. And my pause is really personally driven. I say that because it is also tied to grief. And I've had some major losses in the last 7 years. My older brother, my aunt, who was like a mother. And then in December 2024, my mother passed after a short illness. And so that was a tipping point for me because I had kept going and I kept grinding and I need to show up for everyone after the other two losses. I started feeling it. I could feel it. I could feel it in my heart, obviously, but also just in my body and my tired. And I just knew I couldn't keep going if I wanted to be the kind of school administrator I wanted to be and serve the students and families and faculty and staff in the way, and I needed to take care of myself. And I needed to be able to heal and just step away. And so that's what I did. And also, my parents had been married for over 50 years. And so I wanted to be able to be there for him during his new normal through his grief. And we live states away. I'm in North Carolina and he was in DC. And so to be able to go up there without feeling like, oh, I'm dropping the ball. So I started my sabbatical basically July last summer. And then this past December 2025, my father passed.
Oh,
And so about a year apart, and for me, I was glad that I had made the decision to pause so that I could spend time with him. There were things I got to share with him, and I was able to help him and give my brother some relief because he's boots on the ground up there. And so whenever I came into town, my brother could take a break, and I was all hands on. I'll cook, we'll hang out and watch television, or you'll fall asleep and we'll watch television, whatever it is. But it was just, I could be of service to him. And then, of course, when he passed, I'm still navigating this grief journey and everything. And I'm a parent. So, there's all these people I'm showing up for. And I was like, how am I going to do this if I'm not caring for myself? So it was a purposeful pause, as I call it.
first, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about all of the loss. For you to be able to realize that you had lost yourself during that is what it sounds like. Because as a head of a school, you're in charge of not only the kids, but the staff and the parents and all of it. And you probably just find yourself putting yourself last through it all.
Yeah, and as I say, like I mentioned, I'm a parent of a 17-year-old, so a
Oh,
junior,
yeah.
and I work in boarding schools predominantly, at least most of them have been. And so I'm like, I give more time to other people's children. then and he doesn't feel robbed. My son doesn't feel
Yeah.
robbed. He probably feels like I'm very present in his life and sometimes probably too present. But over this journey of his life, there are times when I'm counseling families, kids, helping them with all these kind of things, listening, all this stuff, going to games, like all the things. And so they
Yes.
really get a lot of my time. And that's part of the job, right? I'm in education. I work in schools. I work with teenagers for a reason because I love it. And I wasn't going to be showing up in the way that I wanted to show up. And it was the best thing for me to do was to step back and take time for myself so I could come
Mhm.
back better.
And to recognize that in yourself and just,
Mhm.
okay, let me take a pause here, literally.
Yeah.
In thinking about doing that, what was that conversation like with your boss at the school? Did
Mm.
you have someone to go to and say, is this all right? Because basically you took an academic year off.
I did. And they were very receptive. They had seen parents are obviously important figures in our life, and everyone has different relationships with their parents. I have very strong relationships with my parents. My mother was a role model in my life, just all the things. And my boss knew that my mother had gotten sick and knew about my brother's passing. Probably, I don't remember if he knew about my aunt's, but he knew about my older brother's passing and knew how important my mom was in just shaping who I was. And just the role I play in my dad's life too, and his impact on me. And so when these things were happening, at first he did say, take as much time as you need. And this was the pre me making a decision.
Okay.
Just the this has happened. Don't worry about the 5 day or 3 days that you get, whatever. Just
Yes.
take what you need. And then more time passed and I returned. I returned
Mhm.
probably sooner than I needed to. And I was trying to keep going like I had always done and that society tells us to do
Yeah.
because you worry about what's going to happen after. And I just went in and we had a conversation about my need,
Yeah.
to prioritize myself and to do it early enough that they could do an actual search to have someone come in because I said I'm stepping away and I don't know if I'm going to come back. I don't know any of that. And so I don't want to hold anyone up. I wanted to be able to give them time to be able to look for a replacement.
That was great. So really mutual respect there and
Hmm.
saying, I'm being honest with you, and them saying, we understand that you need this for yourself.
Yeah.
How much time would you say you gave? I'm just curious, for people
Um,
listening who might be
yeah.
considering this.
I gave probably about 4 months because we're on a July 1 to June 30th fiscal year. So
Okay.
this was a conversation we had in February. In our industry, that's actually around the time, like February, March are big hiring seasons. People are interviewing, people are visiting campuses. It tends to hit around that time.
Yeah.
That part that worked out. Now, I gave them time, but this was not a plan.
Right.
This purposeful pause was not some grand plan. So a lot of times when people sometimes think about, oh, I'm going to take a sabbatical, I'm going to step away, like they've planned all the contingencies,
Yes.
and financial contingencies, like all the things you're supposed to be doing. This was not that kind of organized plan. This was yeah, I just gotta I
Yeah.
just gotta stop. I'll make it to the end of the year. And so that's different,
It
right? So
is
I would
different.
suggest people if you can try to plan. But
Yes. Yes.
sometimes life is lifing.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not 4 months. Sometimes it is,
Right.
I just need to step away now, or
Yeah.
my parents that I'm caring for need me now, and whatever
Yep.
it is. You did a good job just letting your employer make that plan. But then for
Yeah.
you, you finally get to the end of the year and you're like, okay, now what? Now, what are my days going to look like?
Yes.
So you set them up like you
Yeah,
do
I
all the
did.
time.
I did a great job doing that, helped with the
Yeah.
transition, did all the files and
Yeah.
everything.
Your
And
replacement
then,
was great,
oh
all
yeah,
set.
yeah, I didn't have a plan for my days. And I am someone who, yes, like I'm full on, like I'm that engaged person, right? I know the kids' names, students, all the things, right?
Yes.
I'm involved in my community heavily. I do service. I like to go to events. I go to art exhibits, all the things. And I was like, huh, what do I do? So the first thing I did was when I stopped, I actually went to the beach for a long weekend.
Nice.
I was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do because I have no idea what any of this is gonna look like. And so I'm just gonna go to the beach because I
Yeah.
love the beach. And so that was like one thing I decided to do. And then I made like really minor rules for myself. There's not going to be any guilt if you have a day where you do absolutely nothing. You're not going to feel bad about that. And then another one was that I'm only doing the things that I want to do. So people
Mhm.
can't take up my time. I'm not going to feel like, oh, I should do that, but I really don't want to. And I've held true to that. I don't do things that I don't want to do. Okay, I don't want to drive my son to football workouts at 5:30 in the morning. That's a one asterisk, but he doesn't have a license. Someone needs to get him there. So I take it as just time to get up early
Yes,
and
exactly. More to the
everything.
day.
So that's the one thing. Other than that, I don't do things I don't want to do. And I don't feel guilty if I have a day or more where I do nothing and it's not productive. Or I just watch television all day because I love television. I'm fine with it.
Because you're healing yourself. And I think it's something important that I'm just thinking now is when you do take a sabbatical, you take this pause, you take this mini retirement, it's not about planning for the next the whole entire time and healing yourself and figuring what am I going to do when I get back? It literally can be
Mm. And that's what I wanted for myself. You know.
yeah. And like you said too, you were going to take care of family. You still have your responsibilities, but you
Mhm.
could really pour your heart into that probably where when you're working a really intense job, you can only pour your heart in until Monday morning and then back at it.
And at boarding schools,
Yeah.
it's not even that. Life goes on through the weekends and everything. And I love the boarding school community. I know it. I went to it. I was a part of it. I love the community because you're connected, you know each other, but you're on. You're on a lot. And so I had to be intentional even in those spaces when I was working to say, I'm stepping off campus or I'm going to a movie. And I wanted to demonstrate that for students. What does it look like to be in this leadership position and to still make time for oneself as a working person who gives to their community or goes to the Beyonce concert in St. Louis for 36 hours, and everything. That my world doesn't revolve around them as much as I care for them. And so they know, oh, Miss Sasser shows up for us, and has a life.
Yes. And that is such a great example because the more you can take care of yourself and do those fun things, you come back from Beyonce and you're ready to go. You are just in
Oh,
it
yes,
and it energizes you.
absolutely.
That's a great example for your son as well, especially at 17. He's picking up on everything that you're doing now with
Yes,
Network.
yes, yeah. And I've seen our relationship evolve in this past year that I've been on this sabbatical. Sometimes I'm sure he's, oh my gosh, you're probably too much here. But there's also this, he asked me about my day. He knows I'm doing boxing and I'm sore because I always ask him about his day. And so he'll take me through. But he's also making me watch this anime. The next episode dropped today, and I know he's going to come home today and be like, all right, we got to watch Peak. So we've connected in a different way because of this time. I went to all his wrestling matches. I wasn't able to do that when I was working last year. I could go to some, but not all. Football games, I was couldn't go to those. So it's been nice to be able to do that. Even volunteer to school. I work at a school. Why am I going to go volunteer somewhere else? But once again, I come back to my rule. I don't do things I don't want to do. I've chaperoned many dances working at a school. I'm not chaperoning dances at my son's school. I will not do that to him or myself. I will volunteer in the spaces I want. Teacher treats, love to deliver those. Help with the Business Alliance, helping them with workplace skills with students or do the college and career fair that's coming up. That's
Yeah,
how I show up there. But I'm
I
like,
think that's
that's my
great.
limit.
Yeah. And I want to make sure that we mention too, like you're still in school, you're taking online classes through UNC. Tell us about
Yes.
that because that takes up a portion of your time now too. You're not watching anime all the time. You're in class.
Yes, I'm in a doctoral program. I am about to start, like literally on Monday from when we're recording this, I'm about to start my sixth term. So it's the last term of my second year of a 3-year program. And it's in organizational learning and leadership at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And so it's been good. It's been hard, even on my sabbatical where I'm like, oh, I'm behind on the reading and I got to catch up. But I'm enjoying the learning. And so I'm weirdly geeking out. Like we have human resource management coming up and data driven decisions. And I'm already looking at some of the reading and I'm like, okay, this is going to apply. And how do I like connect with these concepts? And that's what learning should be. It shouldn't be checking a box and just going through the motions. I want to be engaged in my learning, even on the hard days when it's a little harder to be. And that doesn't change even when you're my age and in a doctorate than when you're 17.
Yeah.
There's still those days where you're like, this is not not the thing I want to be doing. So how do I stay like focused?
Yeah, but I would just imagine you have more energy to focus now than if you were working a full-time job too and having to do this, which I know you did prior. You've been doing this for a couple of years now. You're probably
Yes.
excited. It's a little bit of structure and maybe a less than structured week
Yes.
now.
Yeah, there are a few things that are a part of my days.
Yeah.
Everything else is pretty fluid. I get up, I take my son wherever it is, I come back, I have tea and a bagel, so tea is a part of my life. Now I've added boxing in. That's not an everyday, but I do that a couple of times a week, and I'm going to try and keep consistent. And then there'll be school. Everything else is relatively fluid, and then the rest comes and goes however I decide.
How are you feeling yourself now? We're recording this in April. You
Yes.
started in last July. So
Mhm.
you're coming up on a year in a few months. How are you feeling about your grief journey? And how are you feeling about yourself and your health and just overall
Yeah.
mentally, emotionally, physically?
There's so much that we don't talk about when it comes to grief, right? There's no, and you're just over it because you're not, right? I still have moments where there are things I want to share with my parents and they're not here for me to share. I can't pick up the phone. And I was a call every Sunday, basically the majority of my life, kid. And I think it's more, you don't get over it, you just continue to move through it. Something else that I've been trying to really connect with is that joy and grief can exist in the same space at the same time. I do have support. I have a therapist because you don't get through things without being able to have that. And I think it's a healthy practice. I put it on my calendar because I also want my son to know what it looks like to get support when you need it. That grief and joy, and that if I am joyful and having joyful moments, that does not mean less about missing my parents and things. And I'll do things to connect with them, or I'll chuckle about something because it reminds me of them. My mom was American, my dad's Nigerian. And so whenever I hear a Nigerian accent, it makes me smile
Yeah.
because it feels like home. My mom was from Baltimore, also North Carolina, but mainly Baltimore. Maryland blue crabs, that's a real thing. And
Yes.
so I'm like, whenever I have crabs, which is not enough, I think of her. And it's a process and it's a journey. I think I'm always going to have moments. I talk to people who've been on this grief journey for over a decade, right? Or longer. And once again, grief and joy, it coexists, and they still deeply miss their parents or their parent or whoever it is that they lost. And they do things in honor and memory of them and everything. And it never really goes away, but I'm not lying in bed with the sheets over my head. I can get up
Yeah.
every day. And I think that's important to be able to do that.
And have the space to be able to think and
Mhm.
realize maybe what you did need, where before this you were just in the routine and on the hamster wheel and doing all the things that you didn't have a chance to maybe process that. Do you feel like
Right.
this pause helped you in that aspect?
Yes, busyness was basically a distraction to allow me to get through the day, right? And it wasn't a willful one. It wasn't like I need to, but it's a compartmentalizing one. If
Yeah.
I sit in my grief, am I able to do work? But I need to do work. So let me focus there because then I'm not weighed down by this grief that you still feel and everything. By removing some of that busyness, it's allowed me to, like I said, do these things that are one healthy for me, my body, my mind, my spirit. At some point, even though I said I was going to do it during sabbatical, that's not going to happen. But I want to do some more writing. I do it on a Substack. It's not just about grief. I just write, but I do want to do some writing, possibly related, like something for my mom and then something for my dad. Don't really
Mhm.
know what that looks like. Maybe it's a mini book for each of them. At some point, I will do that. I have my mom's some of her memoir. She had been writing it. She was a Foreign Service officer at the State Department. And so a lot of her professional stuff up until a certain point is actually documented officially with the American Foreign Service Association. So I actually have whatever she had printed out. I haven't read it. I haven't looked at it. She was also a big journaler. I don't have all her journals yet because we haven't gone through all their stuff because my brother and I are just taking the time to do it. And
Yeah.
we're like, there's no rush.
Yeah.
If it takes us a year, if it takes us two, we will work through it. So at some point I will get those too. My sister and my brother know if anyone's going to do anything with the writing or the memoir or whatever, it's going to be me. It's
You,
going to be
yeah.
Patricia. So at some
Good.
point I'll get to that, and that will also be therapeutic, and I'm sure there'll be some laughs and just within myself and just thinking about
Oh, yeah.
times and stuff.
Oh, but see, this time also allowed you to think about that and to think about these
Hmm.
projects you have in the future.
Yes.
I'm curious about your school. Are you going back to the same position at the school in July? How does it look like when your time is up for this year's sabbatical?
Yeah, no, I'm not going back. So it's totally
Oh,
different. When I started my sabbatical, I had no idea what was going to happen in a year. I did have some conversations with people in my industry, like friends, just to think about if I do come back to schools after my year or school adjacent, like we have a lot of associations, it could be like a nonprofit. I wasn't really sure. I'm also heavily into, like I said, serving the community. So I was like, maybe I'll go into corporate social responsibility. Like that's
yeah.
an industry. And I didn't know. I was just like, this might get stressful at some point, if I don't know what's next. But no, I'm not going back to my former school where I was the associate head for academics. But July 1, I will be starting as a head of school at a boarding and day school up in Pennsylvania, the Soulberry School in New Hope, Pennsylvania, about an hour from Philly. And
Oh.
I'm excited. I've been able to go up and visit a couple of times. I'm going again a week from now for reunions and the last board meeting. They've really embraced me. I like the vibe there. I like what they're doing. I like how we care for, support kids, and launch them into whatever's next for them. And so I'm excited to be able to step into this role to lead a community and to co-create what the future holds for them because they'll be going into their second 100 years.
What a fresh start. Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
didn't know that. I
Yes.
did not realize that. And congrats, because what a fresh start for you coming off of
Yes.
this year break to start fresh at a new school, especially during a significant time for the school, and to be the head
Yes.
of the school.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited.
Every decision we make really does lead to the next thing. And
Yes.
you took a really big, bold decision a year ago. And look where it led you. You would have had no idea. I'm sure you had conversations where I'll be back. I'm sure I'll be back. And just, but here you are. On to
Yeah.
the next.
Yeah, it gave me the space to think about it, to
Yeah.
even question, like I said, do I want to go back into schools? Do I want to
Right.
just be able to support schools? Do I want to change industries, which I've done before? 20 years ago, I was in sports television production at
Yes.
ESPN. So, do I want to pivot again? But having that space to really think about what matters to me, what kind of work do I want to do? And even if I wasn't in schools, I knew that serving was important. So that could have been going back into corporate, maybe. I don't even know how you break into that industry, but I was going to research and find out and helping create spaces that allow people to serve their communities, right? And it could have been something else. I was tossing around the idea of launching a book festival here in Raleigh because I was like, I have some time. There's no book festival. I love books. I was like, maybe I'll do a book festival. And so I was actually going down the road and having conversations to learn how to do that. It just opened up the space to really think about making sure that whatever was next had meaning for me and it
Mhm.
was the kind of work that I want to be doing. And what my journey has told me, even though the other things may still happen, I'm going to continue to serve. Maybe I'll do a book festival, maybe at my new school, but
Yeah.
or there's one in the county actually, and so I'm like, maybe we could have something on campus that's a part of that one and bring authors to campus or something. But I love working with high schoolers. I don't know if I would have said this 30 years ago, but I love it. I love to see their journeys. I love supporting them. I love creating spaces for them and doing it with really dedicated, talented adults who have that same passion and investment that I do. And I love supporting aspiring leaders. So that's something that I also love to do and would continue whether I was in or out of schools to do is how do we create spaces to build those next leaders, to mentor, to sponsor, and everything.
Talk about second acts. I've had a lot of acts and you're open to more. And I love that so much because I think it's important to allow yourself space, whether it's a sabbatical or whether it's just, okay, this is my 30 minutes once a week where I'm
Mhm.
sitting with my own thoughts to think about what it is you want to do next. It's so easy to stay in the status quo. And it would have been
Yes.
very easy for you, Patricia, to go right back to your position in
Yep.
Raleigh. It would have been so easy for you to go back there. But you said, no, I had the space to think about what else can be. And you found something and you've got all these
Yeah,
other
yeah.
ideas. So it's
Yes.
what a beautiful path that you carve for yourself.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
What would your advice be for anyone who's thinking about a sabbatical, mini retirement, whatever you want to call it, but just
Mm.
needing a pause for a plethora of reasons?
As I said, mine was very unplanned.
Yeah.
But I would say if you can plan, it does help to have a little more intentionality around the financial piece. So that doesn't become a stressor that takes over your time during your
Yes.
pause. And that's if you can plan. There's so many reasons that you might not be able to plan. But if that's the thing, please lean into that. The other thing I would say is don't over regiment yourself. I think we put all these rules on ourselves and then we will sit there and be like, I didn't accomplish this. And so now you're beating yourself up because you didn't accomplish this. Remember why you needed the pause. The pause might be something like me on this healing journey and everything. The pause might be because you want to work on some project, right? And you
Right.
need the time and space to do it, or you want to travel, or you're a caregiver. There's so many reasons. So remember what that why was and make sure that's your north guiding star. And then make sure that maybe you're doing some other things that are fun and bring you joy in that process. I've gotten to do, I'm always pretty random. I just do things because that's who I am. But I got to film a local tourism commercial because they were looking for extras and everything. And so I was like, why not? I'll submit a tape and see what happens. I got to do things like that. Go to the General Assembly in North Carolina for Legislative Day to talk about different things. I've also tried to stretch myself and do some things that I hadn't been able to do because I was working so much. And so when those things come up, I'm like, yeah, I am going to go do that. I'm going to go to the Art of Fashion show and do these kind of interesting things that I like to do. I'm going to go to Startup Week. Raleigh Durham's in the midst of Startup Week right now.
Ooh.
I'm not a founder or funder or entrepreneur, but I was like, but it's going to be interesting to hear what they talk about and hear some of those keynotes and see what I can take from that I can apply in my school settings. And so I volunteered yesterday all day,
I love
and it was
that.
fun. Yeah,
Oh my God, we're so much alike. I wish we lived closer because
I
I'm always
know.
like, let's go to this random event too, because you never know. And like you said,
Exactly.
why not? Who knows? One person, you'll have a nice conversation and it'll be a great day.
Exactly. Exactly. I always encourage people to do that. I encourage students to do that.
Yeah.
They're like coming to me as the wrong person to be like, maybe I don't want to because I'm
Do
going to be
it,
like their
do
champion. And
it.
everything.
Well, Patricia, I'm glad that you reached out to me on LinkedIn, that we were able to start a conversation and get you on here because you really showed all the different facets that a mini retirement can take
Yeah.
and how it can help you in so many different ways. I feel like it
Hmm.
really did heal you on your grief side. It healed you on just who you are and who you want to
Hmm.
be and led you to this new path for this next act of your life. And I just
Absolutely.
thank you for all of your advice and for being here. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It was great chatting with you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yes, I'm wishing you the best in this next chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Second Act Success podcast. If this episode has you thinking about starting a business or growing the one that you already have, I offer free Second Act strategy calls. This is where we map out what makes sense for your business and your life. You can book yours now at secondactsuccess.co/strategy or grab the link in the show notes below. As always, thank you for being here. Until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Russell, wishing you the best day ahead as you plan your second act. I'll see you on the next episode.